Hello YouTube, today I want to do a little bit of a video on some mechanics in Pokemon. Now, if you've played any competitive single battle Pokemon at all, you'll probably know about a couple of moves. These moves, when played, have a special effect that play out when a Pokemon enters the battle. We call them entry hazards. Now, entry hazards have been around since Generation 2 and are very prevalent from Generation 4 and onward. There are a couple of different entry hazards, but let's go over what is an entry hazard. An entry hazard is a condition that affects the side of the field. Basically, entry hazards are created by moves. Some moves' effects can be removed, so they can be removed. And now they can be blocked by heavy duty moves. Condition that affects the side of the battlefield causes any Pokemon that is sent in battle to be afflicted by a negative effect. Now, as of Generation 8, there are 5 entry hazards. And we're going to go over each one, its effect, and then I'm going to show you something that could never be done before Generation 8. A little special something I thought up and I made a video on. I did see someone else try to make a video on this, but I have successfully pulled it off. So let's get into our first entry hazard. In Generation 2, spikes are an entry hazard that, if set, would deal 12.5% of a Pokemon's HP on entry if they were grounded, meaning that they weren't a flying type and they didn't have the levitate ability. These could be removed by the use of the move Rapid Spin. After that, in Generation 3, it now made it to where you could set up multiple layers of spikes. The first layer of spikes do 12.5% damage. If 2 layers were up, it would do 16.67% damage. And if 3 layers were up, it would do 25% of a Pokemon's HP. It can now also kill Pokemon when sent in. For some reason, which in Generation 2 made it so a Pokemon would actually survive on 0 HP. In Generation 4, the move Defog was introduced, and that is another way now of removing a person's spikes. In Generation 5, the Air Balloon was introduced, and that is another way to avoid spike damage. Also note that if gravity is in effect, if you're holding an iron ball, or if you are baton passing ingrain, you will take spikes damage. Generation 6 onward, nothing really big changed besides defog. Now we're removing all spikes on field instead of just the spikes your opponent has. So that's a little big and it's very prevalent today, but as you can see, spikes sound pretty good, but they're not that great, because in order for them to have any effect at all, you gotta get 3 layers up, which is 3 turns in a battle, and they don't even affect your opponent's flying and levitate mons. Not a very good move. Especially in Generation 2, where there's the glitch and you couldn't set up 3 layers, and then finally when you could set up 3 layers, levitate mons weren't affected, and that's when the laddies were getting big. So moving on, we now have what is considered by many people to be one of, if not the best, Pokemon move in the game for single battles. Please welcome Stealth Rocks. Stealth Rocks are an entry hazard that, when played, will do damage to all Pokemon on entry. They were introduced in Generation 4. All Pokemon that don't have the Magic Guard ability. They will also do damage based on how the rock type fares against their typing. Meaning if I were to hit you with something like Rock Throw, based on if that would be super effective, not very effective, 4 times super effective, 4 times not effective, it'll do damage by that damage chart. If you resist it by 2, 3.125% damage. Notice how that's about the exact same damage one layer of spikes did. If you just resist it regularly, 6.25 damage. Neutral damage, 12.5% damage. Super effective by 1, 25, and 2 times super effective, 50% damage. And flying types, more like getting punished for this than really anything, because if you look at it, flying types were the answer spikes. Well, here they just avoid it. You can get rid of it with Rapid Spin and Defog, but it's not that great. But alright, in Generation 5, they can be reflected by Magic Code, not really big. In Generation 7, Generation 8, G-Max Steelsurge now sets them up, but it's a pretty crappy move, so we don't have to worry about that. But why are these such a good move? Well, the fact that they hit Flying, Levitate, all those types, that's already great. It'll break Focus Sash, it'll break Sturdy, and you may get up to 50% chip damage on entry. Now, until Generation 8, heavy duty boots weren't a thing. Meaning this was very scary, knowing that I have a Charizard, I'm going to send it in, but I can't. But if still rocks are up, I'm only going to have 50% of my HP. Same with things like Moltres, Articuno, anything that had a 4 times weakness to rock. It was very scary. It's a very good move. You'll see it used on many teams. I know it's almost necessary for every AG battle. Almost every Necrozma Duskmane runs it if it's a defensive set. Sometimes you have Suicide Leads just to get Stealth Rocks up. It's that good of a move. And even when Heavy Duty Boots finally came out, it's still amazing because it takes up an item slot. But this was not the only entry hazard released in Generation 4. There's another entry hazard that was released in Generation 4. Toxic Spikes. If you've ever been swept by some nonsense, these were probably in the formula. So what are these? Entry hazard, when laid, can be stacked up to 2 times. If you are grounded, meaning you do not have the Flying or Levitate type, not holding an air balloon, and you don't have the Magic Guard ability, and 1 layer is up, on entry you will be poisoned. If 2 layers of up, you will be badly poisoned, or as we like to call it, toxic. But the bad part about these, Steel type, or the Pokemon with the ability Immunity, are immune. Leaf Guard is immune during sunlight. And here's the worst part that was introduced in... Actually, it was just in the base generation. The Poison type enters the field and is grounded while Toxic Spikes are up. Not only does he not get poisoned, they disappear. So this is a great move. Seems amazing. Toxic Damage, one of the most prevalent moves that was introduced in Generation 1, and is only gotten better and better. But it's just, in addition to all the regular entry hazard restrictions of being countered, it also has the Steel and Immunity. I guess if you're running Snorlax, but the poison type, just straight up removing them. People have tried to run Toxic Spikes now in AG on Eternatus, but that really just doesn't work because most people run Eternatus and then they're just gone. So lots of people, including myself, have just reverted to Toxic because Toxic Spikes look beautiful on paper. They just don't work, really. Same thing with the defog and everything. Now we roll on over to Generation 6. And this is my favorite entry hazard. One that I think is either underrated or doesn't get enough respect or just doesn't get a slot, and that is sticky webs. Sticky webs. In addition to that, let me just build on Stealth Rocks really quick. In addition to all of that, almost every Pokemon in the game has access to Stealth Rocks, which is insane. Sticky webs. On entry, if a Pokemon is grounded, its speed is lowered by 1 stat. Unless you're a clear body, white smoke contra, you get it. This is amazing because if you've ever played competitive Pokemon, you know that speed tiering is huge. A Pokemon can be a counter just for having 1 more speed than that Pokemon. So if this is up, you don't have to worry about, am I going to be faster now? It's very scary to think about. And it's huge. I know I played a little bit of OU in Gen 6, and I ran a Sticky Webs Stealth Rocks Smeargle. In Gen 7, or maybe it was Gen 8, in NatDex AG, I played a little bit of that, and I used a Sticky Webs Smeargle. Not even Stealth Rocks this time, just Sticky Webs. Because it's that good of a move. Just being faster means so much in the game. And it's a great, great move. Now, if you've been... Now, there's one more entry hazard in Gen 8, and you might not even be familiar with this entry hazard, and that's because it is so exclusive that only one Pokemon in the game gets access to it. G-Max Steelsurge, or Steelsurge, or Metal Bits, as I think it likes to call it. This is the exclusive move of Gigantamax Caparajah. It's Stealth Rocks, but instead of the Rock type, it's the Steel type. So you'd think, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Not only do we get Rock type Stealth Rocks, we now have Steel type Stealth Rocks. They're double up, and problems are definitely there. Starting with, only Caparajah learns it. Caparajah, trash Pokemon. I believe he's like very, very low tier. And the next problem is Gigantamax is only now available in AG or NatDex AG. Caparajah living in AG or NatDex AG is not a pretty sight, especially with so many things that counter them. And finally, you have to waste your Dynamax just to do this. Set it up once, just for your opponent to come in, defog them. It's not worth it. Like, if they add another move that's maybe just a little more accessible, maybe just Caparajah gets a move that doesn't require Dynamax to set them up, sure, I guess. I'm sure someone will find a use for them, but this is awful. Spending a whole party slot and then a whole Dynamax just to set up something that my opponent can remove very easily because they're already ready for Stealth Rocks. It's awful, but the addition to this move, I have struck a theory. You can now kill a full party of healthy Pokemon, full HP Pokemon, in one turn. It used to be that you could kill a full team of Pokemon in one turn, but they had to be pre-damaged. But the introduction of Gmax Steelsurge, you can now do it in one turn. Let me show you. Here we are in Pokemon Showdown Simulator. Now, I'm going to show you the battle. I'm going to go over the mechanics behind it, and then I will show you the battle again. Now, I'm just going to show you real quick. So, we're going to start with Regice. Shuckle is going to be our Stealth Rock Center. Now, by the way, the team that I am using for the entry hazard side was made by the Garbodors for their entry hazard video, which sort of inspired me to make this, and I thought I'd give them credit by using their team. So we're getting all our entry hazards up, the ones that do damage, and here we go. Turn 7, we're going to Dynamax, Gigantamax. He's going to set up Gravity so things like Articuno will take damage from it. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Now, if that Regice, let's say, you could do it with the Regice. I'll explain it also a little bit. You didn't have to take out the Regice manually. You can definitely do this without the Regice. All in one turn. Alright, now let's go over the science behind this. Here we are in Pokemon Showdown now. I'm also going to be referencing this a lot, so we'll get to that. So the first up is the spikes. Now, I set up 3 layers of spikes, so we know that 3 layers of spikes is going to do 25% damage. But that's not the thing. First thing I'm looking at is what does the most damage, and that's obviously going to be Stealth Rocks and Steelsurge when the opponent is 4 times weak to them. So my first theory was, if I find a type that is weak to both Rock and Steel, if I find 2 types that are both weak to Rock and Steel, if there's a dual type with both those types, they die on entry very easily. So I looked it up. There's only one type that is weak to both Rock and Steel. It is going to be the Ice type. So that's the first filter I threw in. I realized from then that there's only one type, so I will need spikes to be into this. And then still, that will only do 75%. So one of the types of the Pokemon I'm using has to, all the Pokemon I have to be using have to be dual type, and one of the dual types, the second type that isn't Ice, has to be weak to either Rock or Steel. So only the following combinations of Pokemon are allowed: Ice, Bug, Ice Flying, Ice Fairy, Ice Rock, those are the combinations that we're going to have to live with. Now, obviously, Ice Flying won't work unless you got Iron Ball or Gravity's in effect or something like that. Now, you might have noticed in the video, I was using Regice to set up Gravity and stuff, and I just killed him straight up with the move. You don't have to do this. You can actually, if you find a bulky Ice type that's also weak to the entry hazard thing, you could just like heal him back to full, and you're not using any Ice Flyings, and you can truly kill all Pokemon due to entry hazards, but that wasn't the theme. So I put together the team, right? I threw Regice in there. So if you were to test this out right now, this would fail. And I tried it many times, but for some reason, I did like full movesets and everything. For some reason, only Articuno was dying. And then I figured it out. First, only Articuno was dying. Some Pokemon would survive on 2 HP, and some Pokemon would survive on 1 HP. I figured out that Pokemon that were surviving on 1 HP is because their HP was even, so I changed all of them to even. Now, all the Pokemon were surviving on 1 HP except for Articuno, who was dying, and that's when I figured it out. Your HP has to be divisible by 4. You don't matter. Once every Pokemon's HP was divisible by 4, it works. And let's rewatch the video. So, we're going to be setting up the entry hazards with our Shuckle for Stealth Rocks. Now, obviously, this is important because it's going to be doing some of the most damage. Spikes are also going to be necessary because no 2 types are weak to Rock and Steel. Only Ice is weak to both Rock and Steel. We're going to get all 3 layers up, and then we are ready to rock with Caparaja, Gigantamaxing, and going for that G-Max Steelsurge Gravity, so Articuno and Delibird will die to this. Now that all their HP is divisible by 4, none of them are wearing the heavy-duty boots, Gravity's up, they're all going to die in 1 turn. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you learned something about entry hazards. I hope you enjoyed all Pokemon dying in 1 turn. That was really fun to experiment with. It took a lot of trial and error, but I finally got it down. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want more content like this, I will be streaming later today. And I will also have a 12v12 against one of my friends coming out soon. Until then, see you guys later.